Good morning. So we should start with good afternoon, but good morning. It's 11:20 a.m. on a Friday, November 8th. This is United TV. My name is Kemal Erkan. I'm here with Sean Dunnigan. Sean, how are you doing?
Doing great. It's good to be diving into November here, although the weather the past couple days was like almost 80 degrees, I think. So I didn't really feel like November, but it's a little bit chillier now
I
today.
think it will get better.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
global warming.
So,
Season now.
well, we'll actually feel the cold probably in December and January. So the global warming is not real.
Seasonal warming.
I don't think it is, but that's just me. We wanted to have a special session today, so that we went out of our regular time because you are half day today. So I didn't want to cover this after doing all that work that we did with the elections.
Correct. Yeah.
It would be more meaningful to cover this together. So and we change our time because of that. So we started covering elections as of January about this year. So one of the issues that we were kind of covering, trying to kind of see this from both angles, like from the Republican side, Democrat side, what's good, what's not, what are the crucial decisions that they needed to make and how they execute those decisions. And what we were doing is trying to get some data. And data was based on who actually should be, it first started with whether or not Joe Biden should be running.
Yeah.
And then we have a survey back in January, and then 63%, I believe, almost 64% that time said, no, he should not be running. This is dated on January 18, 2024.
Correct. Yeah.
So, and then after this, we asked the question whether or not who should be actually replacing and running. And then this would be that time there would be a good way of having a primary for the Democrats. People who are running and willing to run would be able to have join and start their campaign. And then we give four options. And Michelle Obama was at 41%. With 41%, she was the highest, and Gavin Newsom was 24%, and Kamala Harris was the least favorite one with 17%.
Yep.
When I shared this with some of my friends, they said this is Twitter, X, and the platform.
Yeah,
after Musk was more Republican, and I was saying that, hey, we are actually, this is open for everyone. But let's see what the other polls and surveys are talking about and showing us. And they were kind of give and take. It was similar numbers and a similar people. Now you may, doesn't matter which party you are on, which side you're on, if you look at it from the common sense and reasonableness. Then you would see Michelle Obama just because she's popular. We may have disagreements with her. That's a different problem. But would she be a better candidate than Kamala Harris? Absolutely, yes. Now, Gavin Newsom, very liberal, maybe too liberal for some of us, but he's running the sixth biggest economy in the world. That would be California. So when you have a strong person in that party, then you would think that it would be a good ticket between Obama and Newsom, but that opportunity for Democrats is lost. And another thing was Biden insisting on running.
Yeah.
And then, and also when we asked this question to the last two participants, Dr. Katz and Mike Ramon, the question was whether or not if this was Biden's decision being so late and not giving any options, and then only option being Kamala. So then it's almost people were dictated to just go with one. And when you take the options away from people, they communicate with you in two different ways. one, either they don't go and vote. Two, they actually maybe vote for the other party.
Mhm.
And because if they're closer to the middle, and when you dismiss the opinions of people and then kind of bypass the system, that's inevitable. So we didn't see that on the Republican side. So we saw Trump running a primary with several other people running, and they said what they needed to say, and then they went with their candidate, and also. Sean, one of the other things that we were also covering is every time there was a legal action against Trump.
Oh yeah, all the
So,
lawsuits.
right. So we said, look, you can't do this. You can't use your political power to go after the opponent. That's always going to backfire. And it did.
Yeah, I think maybe some of the things we can point out there too is that perhaps they were focusing too much of their effort on the opposition as opposed to improving their own campaign. And saying, don't worry about whatever's happening over there with the nonsense. Like, this is how strong we are. Like, instead of focusing their efforts and energy maybe in the wrong areas. I think a couple other things too, but I just want to follow up on what you mentioned. So having Trump and Harris be the two candidates actually for the election, both tied to previous presidencies, Trump himself being president, and then also obviously Kamala Harris as the current VP with the Biden-Harris administration. I think people are going to associate that candidate with how that presidency went. So obviously Trump's 2016 to 2020 run, and then Harris being associated with the current 2020 through 2024. And as much as things do change over the years, I think they still have that association with our times. Like Trump's big campaign push was how the economy was doing during his 2016 to 2020 run. And that's what he wanted to keep reminding all the voters of. Look at the economic change that we've had. On the other side, with Harris, obviously we've seen a lot of inflation that we always cover here. Some of the concerns with how that current administration was doing, kind of hard for her to maybe separate herself from the Biden-Harris administration and say, no, here's going to be a whole new idea and approach to it. So two things right there. And then also we did have these polls that I just wanted to show that this was back in December of 23. So right before we actually started going into the election, just how, like you said, again, it is Twitter. So who's voting on this? It's a blend. Anyone out there could be on it. But just saying that almost 80% thinking that the current U.S. foreign relations were poor. And then the other one we had was confidence in the government's ability to effectively manage economic issues, also almost 80%. So those kind of were telling signs as we went into 2024 right there. Again, that was in December of 23, that the people weren't thrilled or satisfied with what was currently happening. So I do think that was obviously going to majorly impact the Harris campaign. And then as you were mentioning, the Democrat candidate being kind of forced, that hand being forced of Joe Biden announcing that he wouldn't be running so late in the game, didn't really have the opportunity for other people to say, okay, here's my chance to go out. And they were kind of just left with, here's our only option. We're going to make the best of it. And you could say, it was like a panic. This is what we have. Let's just try our best. But like you're saying, that democratic process of being able to elect through the stages of who you want in the primaries all the way up, maybe there would have been a different candidate for the Democratic Party, which would have impacted the election.
Well, the other reason maybe people were kind of shocked in their own way is because media was not covering everything properly.
Okay.
Right. So when you are just, if you are watching certain media channels, you think that Trump was going to be in jail by now.
Yeah.
So, well, that wasn't the case. And then they actually work probably harder than other side. They had more time. Now, what you are saying in terms of someone who's already in charge is running, well, the questions would be when there are issues, when people are not being happy, well, you're in charge of it.
Right.
So if United Medical has issues And then if Susan or John says, hey, we are going to do this better, I'm going to take care of it. But, well, you're part of the decision-making process. So how can you say that you are not?
Right, you have the ability.
You know, they will say that, why didn't you do it in the 4 years?
Yeah.
So, but it is what it is. And if you remember last week, I think one of the things that I was saying is part of what makes United States the greatest, perhaps the country in the world, is because of the system that we have in place.
Mhm.
So, Trump was the president in 2016, lost in 2020, and now he's the president again. Now, one thing that I want to also kind of address the issue of, we can't just take things in a way that when things work out for us, we can't just say that it's great. But then when it doesn't work out, then we can't just blame the system and the people. Now, 2020 was perhaps it was one of the issues that we had where we kind of undermined the democracy. So, well, we have the same election system, and this time people change their mind. So when you lose, you need to take your head in front of you. We have this old saying in Turkish. I don't know if you have it in English too, but you talk to yourself the example of, like, you have your head, you talk to your head, and then say what went wrong, instead of blaming system and people did cheat, did not cheat. That's not necessarily what's happening in this country. In this country, people decide. So I can tell you what we have today is not going to be the same in 2028. Why? It's because if you look at the historical numbers, midterms, whoever the ruling party is, they always lose popularity. And then if they do well, they're going to have the second term. If they don't do well, they're going to have a second term. Now, in this case, Trump actually won't have another
Right.
term.
So this
will be his last one.
Yeah.
Now, but there's JD, a young guy with maybe Trump's as his protege. He may be getting ready for that. Vivek is one of the people that I thought he was going to be the vice president, but I think he's going to have some role in the cabinet. I may be wrong, but that may be happening. But before we go to that, let me actually just give the statistics on the turnout.
Yeah.
Well, as much as we make a lot out of these elections, people in the United States don't. Our highest turnout was in 2020, and that was 66.4%. That means 34% of the people at the highest time did not even go and vote.
And I think these numbers are of the registered that they registered to vote, or is it just
no? These are the eligible population.
Anyone above 18.
Eligible population. Okay. So I used the same source. It's the eligible population turnout. So it's not, it doesn't include anyone who was not eligible, because there were some. If they had felony, they take those things out. Now, what I did, I went back to 2004, because I have nothing else to do. So I just did this. So it's 60.9% turnout. We have 202 million, almost 203 million eligible population. And the 2008, I thought it was a lot more in 2008, but with the Obama's first term, it was 60.6. So now in 2004, George Bush was the president, right? And then 2008, Obama, and then 2012, it was 58.5%. It went a couple points down. And then Trump in 2016, it was 60.1. So now the eligible population was at 231 million. In 2020, that population went up to 240 million, and the turnout was 66.4. And then this time it's 62.2. So it's the second highest in the last 6 terms.
Yep.
And then 245, almost 246 million people, and that's 62.2. Now, in the 2020 time, with the COVID and everything, maybe some of the process, there's some margin that maybe, going through those felonies and this and that may be a little bit impactful, but that wasn't going to change the election results. But now, with the same system, this is one of the biggest win, right?
Yeah.
With all the states, it's a huge number. So that's kind of the system and the election. And I don't want to hear people just saying that in 2020 this happened. No, about 2024 we got elected. So let's just forget what happened. But let's also not make the same mistake where we look like a Middle East country with after the election we are going and trying to take over the Congress. That was not a good scene and needs not to repeat, hopefully. So what's next?
Yeah. Just to kind of respond to like you're saying too, that voter turnout, I think what we would always mention is when we have these sweeps, it's not so much of the people on the fence that maybe one time it was, hey, I was feeling this way 4 years ago, now I'm feeling this way, but also targeting that population of there's people out there that maybe support my party and they would vote for me, but they're just not going to come out and vote.
Right.
So there's kind of that blend of, yes, there's a swing vote, sure, but we know that also, like for the election, you have to win the state. So there's certain counties that no matter what, it's going to be a blue county, no matter what, it's going to be a red county. Having that total count getting up there, but making sure that the people who would support it do come out, because ultimately in the state, every single vote does matter. And then that represents through the electoral college. So one of the slides here, it's a little zoomed in, but the 4 states listed being Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, and Wisconsin. So these were the big states that could have gone either way. And it was a sweep across the board. You'll see they all went Republican with the red. Having these, especially Pennsylvania, was kind of the turning point in the election of 19 electoral votes going towards Trump to push him over. And looking back at some of the other elections, we did find that Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, of those 4, I believe it was PA, Michigan, and Wisconsin that when 2016, all 3 were red, 2020, all 3 were blue, now back in 24, all 3 were red. So that kind of does, as you were saying, exemplify how the people are feeling, that it's not just, oh, this area, you can just get one of them blue, 2 of them red, vice versa. It is kind of representative of, you could say, the greater body of the country, of the whole people, because we know some states are always red, some are always blue. They call those states early, safe to count, but these ones maybe do best exemplify the average person in a toss-up where they could support either. And this is why you'll see like that sweep. So like I said, 2016 they all felt Republican, 2020 they all felt Democrat, and now sweeping back. So that is something significant to keep tabs on, because obviously it did help push him over the 270 for the electoral count.
One thing in PA, which actually kind of the misperception of politicians and maybe undermining people's choices and opinions, trying to utilize the celebrity power and thinking that people would follow. If I had kids, I would not want my kids to be like Jennifer Lopez. So she's a good singer, or maybe not, but I may like her songs. But I would not want my daughter to be like her. Doesn't matter how much money she has. If I have a son, I don't know if I want him to be like Leonardo DiCaprio. He was in Bob Casey's fundraising 2 weeks ago. So I think they banked on these supports way too much. I was on the invite, I didn't go, but I was maybe gonna go. It's like he's a celebrity, but it was too expensive. But why was he there? To support the candidate in PA. Well, it didn't help. So like bringing that didn't help. Beyonce is not going to help. You can't really undermine what people are. Now, on the other side of it, you can. If I have a son, I want him to be like Elon Musk. When he's out there and then doing something that's different, he's not a celebrity. He's one of the most successful businessmen out there, and he's a genius. Now, but he took a big gamble as well. It was a huge risk. It worked out. It could have not worked out, but that was one of the other things that bothered me, where you bring these big names. Most of them do drugs.
Yeah,
Most of them have psychological disorders, one way or the other. What was the other lady that I couldn't say the name?
Cardi B.
Cardi B. Like, so you are gonna just bring her, and then people are gonna vote for you because Cardi B.
I don't think. I mean, maybe to get people to come to a rally, because hey, I'm also getting to see this concert performance. It's kind of like a trade-off that they'll show up to the
But
rally.
you cannot use that
But
to see.
that's not
That's not going to be your indication of
yeah. That's no direct correlation.
Then don't spend money for that. They can come there for free.
Oh yeah, they're paying these celebrities to show that way to draw in. But like you're saying, there's no direct correlation of I like this person's music. They support. I'm going to go support them too.
Right.
People have their own. At the end of the day, what they're feeling.
Role model is a different thing.
Yeah. So, like you're saying, maybe relying a little too much on that and having some false predictions based on just turnouts for that. Interesting. I think also we do have our state focused one. So we have
right. So we have the state actually was pretty consistent with what we predict. Matt Meyer he got 56% almost of the votes. I may be rounding up a little bit. Kyle Evans, she's at 55%. She's our next, she's our lieutenant governor-elect. Insurance Commissioner Trinidad Navarro, and Attorney General actually didn't run this time. And so Kathy Jennings, I believe, did you confirm her yet?
So I reached back out, so it's either going to be 15th or 22nd, I think, of the dates.
Okay. So the U.S. Senate, our first female and African American senator, Lisa Blunt Rochester, we went to a couple of her events, and she actually came to the show once. The Congress was, probably personally, that's one of the ones that made me the most happy is Sarah McBride. She is the first trans member of the Congress. She is going to be in the House in 2025 January. So we'll probably go to DC. I would at least go if she was. So the local leadership, I think there's an election or some type of meeting today.
Well, and then also mayor, right? John Carney.
John Carney. Well, because he didn't have an opponent running, so he
was a less exciting election.
Right. So
as long as he got one vote.
That's his retirement job. But I think I do want to work with him for the city of Wilmington issues. We still have a lot of problems with homeless population. It's now being in the middle of the city.
Interact more often.
Things are kind of you need to take care of it a little bit more. We have to be more proactive with certain things. We don't need to wait for things to happen. So that needs to be taken under control, and we're going to put a lot of pressure on John Carney in a good way. Not like we are going to corner him, but we want to support him with what he should be doing with that population. The Speaker of the House, this is actually happening today, but I don't know if it already happened. I don't have that information, but Mimi Minor Brown most likely is going to be the Speaker of the House. Kerry Harris, the Majority Leader, and Osinski is the Majority Whip. That's what I am actually projecting. And also for the Senate side, David Sokola is most likely going to be the president. Majority leader is going to be Brian Townsend. Brian Townsend is the main sponsor of the primary care bill. And Elizabeth Lockman most likely is going to be the Senate Majority Whip. And probably this afternoon we'll have these finalized. And these are predictions. I'm not saying that these will, but this is just what we're expecting. But everything can happen last minute.
That is true, yeah. Were there any results that maybe shocked you, whether it was state or national? Maybe like trends or any?
Well, the shocking part was the like how big the Republicans won, like overall.
Yeah, a massive.
It wasn't just about the swing states anymore. So it was, and at that level it was kind of surprising, not shocking, but surprising. I knew when I say this, people think that I was supporting him, but that was really just a prediction, just like I'm predicting now, just like we predicted with Sarah and Lisa in the past. So I knew Trump was going to win because everything was set for him to win, like court cases and the assassination, and the way that they were mocking him in their own channels, that just helped him a lot. And people may like him or may not like him, but he's one of the also very successful business people. He has his name as brand in the world. So you go to Dubai and people, they build a building, but they want to name the building Trump. Yeah. So that's I mean, if they would do that and put my last name on their building, that means I made it, but it's not there yet. So he has done it. So he's a successful business person. Now, the other thing is that I think people were able to see what he did in 2016 to 2020 and what we have seen in the 2020 to 2024 timeframe. We had major wars started, major. So 40,000 people died in Gaza, 40,000. I think if Trump was in charge at that time, I don't think that war would start. The Ukraine war, like total nonsense. Yeah. So for us to support that, so I think people also paid attention to the foreign policy as much as the number one issue was the economy, but the foreign policy was when you have to send a family member over there or your resources over there when you have economic issues, those things become more important.
So, yeah, like you're saying, especially when there's things going on right in your backyard, like you're saying right here, when like you pull up to the traffic light, you'll see things right here. And then in the back of your mind, like, well, why are we so focused on something thousands of miles away?
Right.
So what the government is kind of prioritizing, some people may take it offensive if they don't care about me, they're concerned about this. So in a way, it almost sounds like you think that he was the favorite, and then Paris campaign kind of being the underdog. Whereas
well, I said it first time that she was running, but it was definitely I used the term disaster. So you can go in much. I mean, I know you know, but others who may not believe this.
Yeah,
I mean, we said it.
I mean, even think if I just share on the screen here, you're not going to see the audio from it, but there is down here.
We're talking about that, right? When was that video?
This was from December of 23, I think, like December 29th, right before the New Year's. Yeah. Right there was another poll that we had mentioned with him being, because at that time we thought it was going to be Biden and Trump as the two party favorites. That was the end of 23. And then also, I believe there's another poll if the video switches, which I think it was from MSNBC maybe, that actually ran it, and it was like 78%.
Was
for like Trump, yeah, what they thought.
So one other thing that I want to actually also mention, I don't know, not knowing firsthand, maybe I'm speculating a little bit, but part of the issue, I think Biden probably didn't feel right about not running again. So this was kind of forced on him. So, and then, it's kind of like a gossip. It's going to sound like a gossip, but when Jill Biden had that beautiful red dress on the election day, like, I mean, you are the wife of the president, Democrat, and then wearing that red dress was maybe a message. So you can tell that there's some tension there.
Yeah, and I think also news-wise, I remember when Obama was the president going into Trump after that election, when Trump beat Hillary, he addressed the whole public and like this transition, it's the due process. So here, actually, just really quickly, there was the poll, see on the bottom, looked like 79%. That was from World of Statistics. Who is more likely to win the U.S. president? That was 79.
Yeah, we actually use like different sources to kind of see if our poll was kind of
that was with 52,000 votes. So pretty.
So now for the potential cabinet members, I think Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to be most likely in charge of Secretary of Health's position, most likely.
Yep.
The foreign policy is probably Mike Pompeo or maybe Richard Grenell. Elon Musk may create something for him. I don't think he's going to take any existing.
I'm sure
because it's going to require way too much time.
He probably has a full schedule.
Right. So, but I think there will be. I think Vivek should have a position, but he may. I mean, his business probably.
And I think even if they don't have an official position, I'm sure that their advice.
They will different on the advice.
They'll be able to help guide certain decision making things.
Right.
But as you're saying, comparing like a celebrity too, like when you rather have Elon Musk's opinion on some type of new technology, whatever type of field, versus like a rapper, like like when it comes down to it, like who do you want to help you? Yeah, like you got to be thinking about these things. And now now that you won the election, who's gonna help you complete these things that you said, we're gonna change X, Y, Z. All right, now we have to go out and actually do it. You can't just say, give me the chance, we'll do it. Now you have to, or else, like you'll see with the last election, you're not gonna get a second term. So
that's what it is. That's how it should be working, right? So, but I think there's more to see. Now, going back to Delaware, one of our big concerns with our new governor is his position for the legal system. Received almost close to 2 million from outsiders. One would be Phil Shaw, and the other one actually Mike Bloomberg just gave 250,000. And there is an attack on the Delaware's legal system. We are going to be watching those very closely. That's the legal system is extremely important from the business side of it. So that's one of the niche that Delaware has, and state actually makes money from this. So if Matt Meyer promised people to just have some revenge because of their personal, issues were not resolved the way that they wanted, then in return they want to change the state system. We will be watching Matt Meyer very closely. And I think we have a really good balance in the Senate and the House in Delaware that would be making that possible. But that's something that he needs to earn people's trust. So sometimes you just need to be lucky with these elections, just like Kamala's presidential candidacy was a luck.
Yeah.
I mean, like she received, they transferred 900 million to her campaign. So
I think her campaign actually went to debt at the end. There was
like a lot of celebrities, so it's DiCaprio, Beyonce, Jennifer Lopez, Cardi G, whatever her name was. So they received probably at the time 6-7 million. This is also a problem in other countries too.
Do you think that there might be some type of change in the future of actually needing to have like, I'm sure it might be different. So say like Joe Biden was the current president, right? And he said, hey, I'm not gonna run. So last minute, we thought he was gonna be the Democratic candidate. So do you think there'd be some process in place where they must decide at a certain point in advance to give other candidates an opportunity as opposed to just saying, hey, we're just gonna appoint Kamala, like we have no other choice? Like, do you ever see that maybe?
It's the
Or-
system, right?
Yes.
When you make those exceptions,
Yeah.
because what happens when he doesn't,
Mhm.
right? So what's the consequences? If you cannot have a consequence for that, he can pardon himself,
Yeah.
right? So I think the thing was, um, if we saw that. I mean, even with the small sample size and the big sample size, we saw that someone who's at his age, 82 now, right? Like, what the hell are you doing? I mean, go to your beach house in Rehoboth and just enjoy the beach, and you won't get any bad pictures taken if you are not the president. Just
Enjoy life.
do that. I mean, I think I wish you were asking me if there should be an age limit,
Well, that's another
and
thing
that
too.
would be 70 top.
So you must enter the presidency before, so you can
Yeah.
turn 70 while you're in office,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So I think this job is a really heavy schedule job. So uh, and you need to be fully aware of what you are doing. So
Yeah. It's a lot of really big decisions to
yeah,
make.
so you cannot be in charge of the country and having certain mental issues, or maybe you're not 100% anymore. I mean,
Where to?
I'm not how I was when I was 35 physically. Maybe I have more experience, but in terms of the schedule, I could have done more stuff probably. But that changes, and I'm sure 15 years from now it's going to be different. Your parents are in their 60s. I mean,
Yeah.
it's different. They are not the same,
Right.
right?
It's different.
So this is, I think, age limit for the president
Can come around.
would be the right approach. And even Trump, honestly, is way too old for this position. So what if it was his first term and he needs to do like that 8 years?
Yeah.
So we have a president who's 87 years old, and I don't want that. So
It's
just like I don't want to have a 22-year-old president.
right, there needs to be
So-
a perfect medium blend of
Right.
experience, ability, capabilities, energy.
I'll run next term. So
There you go. I'll write it. Well, that's another thing too. I just think it's always interesting to look at some of the write-ins there, like the Green Party or something like that. Like, I think it's interesting.
yeah, no, it's going to be like you have to trust the system and let the system work and not make exceptions, not go out of your way to change things, and then as you let the system settle and trust it, it's going to work. In the meantime, I think people have a lot to learn from what happened. When you work really hard, you can change things, and when you are too comfortable, then you can lose things. Bob Casey was probably the biggest shock that I have. Probably I have in this time. It was worse than. It was bigger than Trump winning this way, because Bob Casey was a seasoned senator, and he brought DiCaprio. I mean, to PA for his campaign. So that means you cannot be too comfortable, and you just need to focus on the meats and potatoes of the issues, not like the woke business, not this, that. You need to value the family, value the economy, traditional structure. People don't like when things are being changed in a way that it is now. This weirdness going on. So people didn't like that. So in the meantime, people who still may have issues, may have different personal issues, they can still run a really good race and win. Sarah, right? So this is all about doing the right thing and focusing on the right thing. So if you are going to go against the values, then you're going to lose.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
That's the American thing, where anyone can represent, it's the people speaking, so.
Right.
Great quality. So I think just looking forward in our schedule wise, now that the elections are over, we will have a little bit more availability in some of these politician schedules that they are able to
So the
attend.
campaigns are over, so we still have a couple of people coming, but we're not going to talk about their campaign. It's more about overall what's happening. I think Tom Carver, Chris Clues.
As you mentioned, Attorney General Jennings, and then
Attorney General is extremely important for this legal system issue.
Yep.
So
that'll be a
because
hot topic.
again, it's not going to be a campaign related one, but more about hey, what's happening and what things can be done, and that's going to be important. And also in December we have
From Oracle.
Oracle Health CEO, former CEO of Cerner, Dave Feinberg is going to be with us, and we are trying to finalize Seema Verma. She is one of the senior vice presidents in Oracle. Used to be the head of CMS in the Trump term, and hopefully we'll be bringing her in December. And then today we have a dietitian wellness webinar with Dr. Handal.
Yep.
And what's our topic today?
So it's Dr. Handal and Beth Wright, and they are covering the importance of knowing your diabetes numbers.
All right. And then after that, we have Bariatric Friday with Dr. Erkan at 3 p.m. So we'll be back.
Look forward to.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you.